Welcome to the People Chronicles. I'm Jackie Hoffman, and I'm joined by a very dear friend, a longtime friend. I think we've known each other 25, 30 years. Michelle Dallago is here on the People Chronicles today, and she's going to tell her story. A great story it is, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And normally we don't necessarily get to hear the end result of a story, but Michelle has a great story, and she is going to share with us today what we are going to learn from her great big story. Michelle, thanks for joining us.
Jackie, thank you for inviting me here today.
Now, you have a story that begins back when you were just a little girl, and you can start there, and we can stretch it out in more ways than one to let everyone know where it is you are today and where your passion and desire and your dreams come from. You're from Pottsville, first of all. We should probably let everyone know that. And you are still living in Pottsville. Where do you work?
I work at the Perception Training Center, which is a Montessori school in Pottsville.
And we're going to find out what a Montessori school is and where the learning and education and teachings came from. What do you want our listeners to learn from your story?
I think what I want our listeners to learn is that we are all in this life to do great work. And, if we really just kind of stop for a minute and start to listen, to what, our soul is telling us, that we will just be part of making a better world.
And how did you get started on following a dream that you were so passionate about? When did it start?
Well, it started about 13 years ago, and I don't know if it was by accident or coincidence or neither, but actually it started when my mother-in-law was cleaning out the basement of her sister's home. She had passed away, and she came over to my house and she said, "Here are these books, you're the teacher." And I kind of, looked at the books and I put them aside, and the one book, just for some reason, the book that was on top just kept calling to me, like, open it, open it. And when I opened it, it had everything to do with what children really need, as a foundation for being successful when they move on in education. I was in the middle school, so I wasn't trained in early childhood education. Actually, when I went through school at Kutztown, I was pretty against, thinking about the idea of daycare. I said, I'm a teacher, and so I went straight to the middle school. And when I opened this book, it was teaching me about early childhood, and it was talking about a foundation that children need to be able to go on into the school districts and really reach their full potential. So I got extremely excited about it.
And there was nothing in Pottsville like this. Had you heard of this type of teaching before anywhere?
Well, the book was just talking about perception training. It was talking about the need for children to be able to move their eyes left to right, back to left again, in the way that they're going to eventually have to read. It talked about the need for children to be able to, have balance and coordination. It talked about the need for children to be able to handle the sensory experiences that are coming at them. And so it was pretty exciting for me, because when I was in the middle school, sometimes I would look at the kids and I would say, there's something, that still needs to happen for these kids, or why don't they know why they're here, or why aren't they excited about learning? And this book was kind of educating me on a foundation that's needed, for children to really feel confident and to be able to reach their full potential. So that book kind of led to 50 other books, and then I discovered Montessori. So it wasn't initially with that book that I discovered Montessori education, but it led to that.
So you're saying 13 years ago is when you found this book, when you decided to take a look at it. And I know, because I know you my whole life, that you have a family, a wonderful husband, and 3 beautiful daughters. So here you are with a family of your own, and you decide that you're going to follow this dream and this passion, and this is what you're meant to do. So now what happens? Because I know that you have to have something in the bank account to create such a wonderful place. How did it happen?
Well, that's the crazy part. I didn't have a dime in savings. Not only did I not have money to do what we eventually did, but I didn't have the education to do what I did. I was educated to be a teacher, and what I was embarking on was becoming an administrator and a head of school. And I needed to know a lot about business. And so I was really fortunate to meet a guy named Ben Kaminsky, who was working for the SBDC at the time. And, you know, like I said, was it coincident? Was it accident that I just ended up, you know, every door that would close, there would be this new door to open. And I ended up down at the SBDC and learning, you know, what it was like to start figuring out how to write a business plan. So I wrote the business plan. I had other friends of mine looking at it, and they said, you know, this all sounds so great, but you need capital, you need credit, you know. You need to have the financial backing, and none of that which I had. So I went to the bank, and actually the banker who I spoke with is now a parent at our school. Her name is Denise Klinger, and she looked at me and she said, don't ever let anybody tell you that your narrative doesn't matter. You know, that what I wrote about, my passion in the business plan, was what spoke to her. And so I don't know if she pulled strings or who she talked to in the banking industry, but somehow I got a loan and I went in underfinanced. You know, I think I started out with maybe $38,000. And when I opened the school, I had 7 children and only 3 were paying. You know, they were relatives and friends. And so, you know, you're looking at, you know, PP&L bills, you're looking at water and sewer, and you're looking at, you know, payroll, and I didn't really have any students. So it was amazing how everything kind of unfolded. But today, you know, almost 13 years later, I can say that we are continuing to educate, and it's amazing.
You started out with 3 students. How many do you have now? This I find amazing because I've had a tour of the Perception Training Center, and it's awesome. So
we have just about 70 children right now.
And when you open up your eyes in the morning and you jump out of bed, it's kind of like your dream has come true, right?
Well, I think it's just I love what I do, and I love to get up and go to work. Even on days that I don't have to go, you know, I find myself there. You know, there's no one over me telling me what time I have to be there, or, you know, that I even have to be there, and I just love what I do. So it's exciting, and I think everyone should love what they do.
What about the times when you thought that there were going to be doors that closed that weren't going to be opened up again? I know that you had spoken about, you know, when one door closes, another door opens, but there were probably times when you could have just given up, but you didn't. So what can you tell our listeners and viewers who, you know, may be trying to follow their dream and they know that it's right there and you just need one more thing to do? What was it that gave you the drive to say, I'm not stopping now, I've come too far?
Well, I think what we all need to understand as human beings is that the universe provides what we need. But the universe can't provide what we need unless we're open to it. And for me, I was living on a prayer. You know, everything was a prayer for me. And when I really kind of just stopped everything, and I can remember, you know, there was a time where I called up Peggy, who's now my office administrator, and I said, what does it mean when you feel like you're drowning? You know, and I can't breathe right now. And she said, it sounds to me like it's a little bit of a panic attack. And it was because of the financial strains of opening the business with not really having any money. And I remember that was the last time that I ever felt that. You know, once she explained to me and labeled it, okay, that it was just my panic, somehow, you know, I opened up to the universe and said, okay, help me through this. And it never happened again. And, you know, even today, you know, when things get a little financially tight, I look back and say nothing can be harder than the beginning. And so nothing scares me. That what happens is we become paralyzed when we have fear of not being able to, fear of not being able to meet payroll, or what happens is we get paralyzed and we don't act and we don't do, and the only thing to really get us into that better situation is to act and to do. So,
all right, you said those 4 magic words. So before we go to break, remember those 4 magic words: living on a prayer. And that's where we're going to come back in the second half of the People Chronicles and find out why that means so much to Michelle and why we need to get in touch with John Bon Jovi.